This happened to me and my friends a couple of years ago, and it still gives me the chills whenever I think about it. We decided to go camping in this pretty secluded forest area that one of my buddies, let's call him Mike, said was legendary for its natural beauty and solitude. The perfect getaway from our hectic college schedules, or so we thought. We packed up our gear, loaded up 2 cars, and made the drive. It was about 3 hours from where we lived, way out in the boonies. The kind of place where cell service starts to get spotty, and you hope to God you don't have a breakdown. We arrived in the late afternoon, found a decent spot to set up camp near a small clearing, and got to work. By the time we had our tents set up and a fire going, it was getting dark. The night started off great. We cooked some food over the fire, told stories, and maybe drank a bit more than we should have. But hey, we were out in the middle of nowhere, enjoying life. That's when things started to get weird. Around midnight, we heard what sounded like footsteps around our campsite. We figured it was just one of us walking around, but a quick head count revealed we were all accounted for, sitting around the fire. We shrugged it off as maybe an animal wandering through and went back to our conversations. But then the footsteps continued circling around us. They sounded heavy like a person's, not an animal's. We called out, asking who was there, but got no response. The footsteps stopped, and everything went silent for a few minutes. We were all spooked, but tried to laugh it off, making jokes about serial killers in the woods to lighten the mood. It didn't work. The silence was suddenly broken by a loud, blood-curdling scream from the forest. It didn't sound human or animal. It was this guttural, piercing scream that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. We were frozen in fear, not sure what to do. Then, as quickly as it started, the screaming stopped and the forest was silent again. At this point, we were seriously considering packing up and leaving, but we were frozen. No one wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Then we heard the footsteps again, but this time they were faster, more deliberate, coming towards us. We scrambled, grabbing whatever we could use as a weapon, but the footsteps abruptly stopped, just at the edge of our campsite. We didn't sleep that night. We sat around the fire, keeping watch in shifts, though I doubt any of us took our eyes off the surrounding darkness for a second. Morning couldn't come fast enough. As soon as the first light of dawn broke, we packed up our camp faster than I thought possible. We didn't bother to properly put out the fire or clean up. We just wanted to get out of there. As we were packing, we noticed something that chilled us to the bone. Our cars had been tampered with. Tires were slashed, and someone had carved symbols into the paint. None of us recognized the symbols, but they looked sinister, almost ritualistic. We ended up having to hike back the way we came until we found cell service and called for help. The police came, took our statements, and investigated the area. But as far as I know, they never found anything or anyone. We never talked much about what happened that night, and we certainly never went back. Sometimes I try to convince myself it was just some locals messing with us. But the fear and the feeling of being watched that I felt that night was too real. It's a camping trip I'll never forget, and not for the reasons I'd hoped. I decided to head out to this national park I'd heard was stunning and not too crowded. I'm an experienced camper, so the idea of going it alone didn't bother me. I packed up my gear, made sure to let a few people know where I was going and when I'd be back, and set off. After a long drive and a couple of hours hiking, I found the perfect spot by a lake. It was serene, beautiful, and isolated. Exactly what I was looking for. The first day and night went by without a hitch. I did some hiking, took a lot of photos, and as night fell, I built a fire, cooked some dinner, and settled in. It was peaceful, the kind of peace you can only find in nature, away from the noise of the city. But then, on the second night, things took a turn. It started with a feeling. You know, that prickling on the back of your neck, like you're being watched. I brushed it off as nothing at first, just the jitters of being out in the woods alone. But as the night grew darker, the feeling intensified. I couldn't shake the sense that there was something or someone out there in the dark, watching me. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the fire, but then I heard a noise. It was a soft, subtle sound, like leaves rustling. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but there was no wind that night. The air was still, and the lake was like a sheet of glass. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it around the campsite, but there was nothing there. The noise stopped, and everything was silent again. I told myself I was just being paranoid, but then the noises started again. This time closer, and I could hear what sounded like whispers in the darkness. I couldn't make out words, but it sounded like voices, multiple voices, whispering to each other. It was enough to make my heart race. I called out, asking who was there. But the only response was a sudden, chilling laugh that seemed to come from right behind me. I spun around, flashlight in hand, but there was nobody there. That was the last straw. I decided to nope out of there. I didn't even pack up my gear properly. I just shoved everything into my backpack, doused the fire as best I could, and started hiking back the way I came, in the middle of the night, using only my flashlight to guide me. The entire way back to my car, I felt like I was being followed. I'd hear footsteps behind me, only to look and see nothing. The whispering continued, always just out of clear hearing, making me question my sanity. It wasn't until I reached my car, locked the doors, and drove out of there that the feeling finally began to fade. I've been back to the woods since then, but never alone, and never to that same spot by the lake. Whatever was out there that night, I know it wasn't just my imagination. The fear was too real, the sounds too clear. Some things can't be explained, and maybe it's better that way. But one thing's for sure, I'll never go solo camping again. So this one time, I decided to go camping by myself. Wanted to clear my head, you know? Found this spot deep in a national park, really out there where you barely get any cell signal. First day was great. Just me, the trees, and a nice little spot by a lake. Next day, things got weird. I found this messed up campsite. Looked like someone left in a hurry or something. Stuff was everywhere, and there was this wallet with IDs still in it. Gave me the creeps, but I figured maybe they just lost it. Decided to stay another night, which in hindsight wasn't my brightest idea. Night falls and it's just too quiet. Then I hear footsteps outside my tent. Not an animal, definitely a person. I'm freaking out, right? I yell, asking who's there, but no answer. Suddenly, my tent shakes like someone's trying to get in. I'm shouting and making all the noise I can, and then I hear this laugh. Like a creepy, I'm going to get you kind of laugh, and this voice says, "You shouldn't be here." No sleep for me that night. I waited for the sun to come up, packed up super fast, and booked it out of there. When I finally got signal, I called the cops and told them everything. Turned out the area was known for some sketchy stuff, like people going missing. Learned my lesson, never camping alone in creepy places again. And if I find a weird abandoned campsite, I'm getting out of there as soon as possible. Seriously, stay safe out there, folks. The woods are wild in more ways than one. Let me tell you about this one camping trip that seriously made me question if I ever want to go into the woods again. It was supposed to be this awesome weekend away with a couple of friends from college. We found this spot online that was kind of off the beaten path, but looked amazing in the photos. Big old trees, a lake nearby, the whole 9 yards. We were all about getting that authentic wilderness experience, you know? We packed up 2 cars with enough gear to survive the apocalypse and started the drive early Saturday morning. The place was way more out of the way than we thought. After the GPS took us down some seriously sketchy back roads, we finally found the trailhead. It was already mid-afternoon by the time we parked and started the hike to the campsite. Everything was going great at first. We found this perfect spot near a clearing, not too far from the lake, and set up camp. We even managed to start a fire without burning the forest down, which I count as a win. The evening was chill, just us joking around and enjoying being away from it all. But then things got weird as it got darker. We started hearing these noises in the woods around us. It sounded like footsteps, but every time we shone our flashlights into the trees, there was nothing there. We figured it was probably just animals, but it was still kind of freaky. We decided to head to bed, hoping to get an early start in the morning. I was sharing a tent with my buddy, and just as we were about to fall asleep, we heard this strange scraping noise outside. Like someone or something was dragging a stick along the fabric of our tent. We both froze, listening, but then it stopped, and we didn't hear anything else for a while, so we eventually drifted off. I woke up sometime later. I'm not sure what time it was, but it was still pitch black outside. I thought I heard whispering coming from outside the tent. I nudged my friend, but he was out cold. The whispering continued, and I could swear it sounded like someone saying, "Leave." Over and over, just that one word. But it was so soft, I thought maybe I was imagining it. I was about to wake my friend up when the whispering suddenly stopped, and the next thing I know, something slams into the side of our tent, hard. That got both of us up. We shouted, asking who was there, but got no response, just silence. After a few tense minutes, we decided to check it out, but found nothing. No sign of anyone or anything having been near our tent. None of us got much sleep after that. In the morning, we found tracks around our campsite. Not animal tracks, but what looked like barefoot human footprints. They circled the entire area and then just disappeared into the woods. We packed up and left as fast as we could. On the way back, we debated over what it could have been. Wild animal, some weirdo messing with us. We didn't really have any answers. All I know is I've never been so scared in my life, and I've been a lot less eager to go back into the woods since then. Thank you for watching. If you found these stories gripping, don't forget to subscribe for more spine-tingling content. For another hair-raising tale, check out our suggested video. And if you're hungry for more eerie encounters, dive into our playlist featuring similar chilling narratives.